All right,
There we
I'd
go.
like to call this regular meeting of the Public Utilities Commission to order for Monday, June 15th. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag,
to the States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, there's nobody here in the meeting room with the three of us, but is there any public on that you would like to say anything? And I don't believe so. So we're going to move on to correspondence. I don't think there's anything that came in late. All right. First order of business then is approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 1st, 2020. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved by Paul, seconded by Rich. Are there any corrections, comments? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Rich has got a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
No, I was gonna say,
Oh, that's aye. You know what? You froze with your hand up. Okay, aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Financials. Bob, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, I put them out there on Friday and went out with the minutes and the agenda. So water, if you look on page 1, you got the revenue of $2,667,557, and the net profit was, or net surplus was $1,013,507. The big items in there are the capital improvements, and there was $714,946. The big items in that were Grasso for $357,897, D&N tanks $235,239, and Wright Pierce for $65,163. Everything else in water and even in sewer are pretty much in line. But moving on to sewer on page 6, you see revenue of $3,482,452, and the net surplus is $1,343,670. City of Danbury has been paid 3 times, so they've received $639,773 from us, and like I mentioned last month, they'll get the last payment in June, so that we don't have to carry a payable. The capital improvements a little bit smaller, $386,861, and it's really with 2 companies, National Water Main, $222,652. And Weston and Sampson for $138,724. That's a total of 361 out of the 386. The rest are all little items. Nothing else major in there. Salaries, benefits, all going along in the right direction, and that's about it.
I have a question.
Yep.
I'm looking at the surpluses, okay, and I'm looking at debt service. It doesn't matter which one. I'll start out with sewer department. I see debt service we had was a 6613 there, it said. My question is, this is based upon just the bond payments, right?
In the sewer department, yeah, that's the bond payments we're making.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and go ahead.
And then you have the clean water fund that we're paying too.
Yeah.
That's also in sewer. I mean, those are the loans that we take out on the projects that we're working on.
Yeah, my question comes down to, for both water and sewer, is, I understand we're making the bond payments, but what about to the town? I know we're approaching the end of the fiscal year. I don't know what we owe the town.
I think at this point, pretty much, both of them are fine. There's no payments due. The only time it becomes a payment due to the town is when we have the projects and we're paying out like D&N tanks now.
Okay.
We gave them $235,000. I think there's another voucher coming in. And until we actually put it out there for a grant and a loan, the town is responsible for that. So that goes into the negative category. But I think at this point, from what I saw, we're positive, even with that, unless we were to do $2 or $3 million in projects, then all of a sudden you'd fall behind.
Yeah.
With that, I mean, you're still going to have borrowings at some point for a 20-year period at 2%. So you'd reimburse that money at that point.
Okay, so at the end of next month, starts a new fiscal year.
The end of this month, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, this month,
July
yeah.
1st starts a new fiscal year, so, I mean, we're in real good shape right now, you know.
That's good.
Yeah.
So as far as the auditors are concerned, we're okay.
Yeah, they started asking for some invoices to test, not so much right now with sewer and water, but just on the general fund itself, you know, for the operations. So that'll go on for a number of months. It may, you know, hopefully they get it out by the end of November, early December. I always push them for that, but you know, with the way they're doing it right now, everything is like this, Zoom. They're not physically in-house.
All right.
Matt and I met with them, Joe, anyway, last week. And I think if they go upstairs to the meeting room B, they can separate and, you know, look at the invoices they need to look at. So
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Any other questions for Bob? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the financial report.
I'll make that motion. We accept it.
Second.
Rich seconds. Hearing no other questions, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That carries. Moving on to invoices, we have 10 invoices totaling $432,027.86. And I'll make a motion that we approve that amount for invoices on the report dated June 15th, 2020.
So move. Or second.
Okay, Rich seconded. Take a couple minutes to look over those. Bob and Tom are here in case you have any questions.
I can just briefly explain that you see a lot of Wright Pearsons and they're a little bit aged. When the COVID hit and we were kind of staying separated, I think there was a lag there in them getting the invoices to me remotely by email. I think they skipped sending me a couple, and I think a couple that I did get got buried in my email. So I kind of squared away all the old ones at this point, and I tried to get them all in here for this month.
So the last one is through the end of April?
The last Wright Pierce you see is it's dated May 4th. I didn't want to inundate us with, I have the current ones and I was going to do those at the next meeting.
Okay.
So I wanted to just get caught up with the old ones and not have too many all at once.
All right. Payment requisitions. Okay. Any other questions for Bob or for Tom?
Nope.
And hearing none, we have a motion on the floor to approve those invoices as recommended. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. Moving on to new business. Actually, we were supposed to have an applicant here with us and he has apparently forgotten about the meeting. So I'm not sure we have anything. You want to just bring us up to date on what that is?
Yeah, this is a development that's going to go in on Good Hill. I think it's 11 unit, 2 bedrooms each. There's no water yet on Good Hill. So for him to get water, he proposed to pursue the option of a water main extension. If you recall, we put a policy in place, probably approved it maybe a little over a year ago. And this would be the first go around of us utilizing this water main extension policy and the agreement. So what I did after the last meeting, I sent you all again a copy of the policy and the agreement so that at least we'd have something to look at in advance of this. So at this point, I mean, he's got an application into P&Z. I think he's on their calendar for the end of June. So he'll be working his way through there. And, but again, I just wanted to, he wanted to be on the agenda to just discuss the project. That's kind of it in a nutshell. It's kind of an odd shaped property if you're not familiar with it. It has frontage on Good Hill. The property actually wraps around a residential house at number 11. So he actually has two pieces of frontage on Good Hill. He's proposing to bring his road and his utilities in on the northerly piece of frontage. One of the items for the water main extensions is that in the policy, we put it that we would extend it across the full frontage. So at this point, I believe we'd be extending that water main up through the property line that goes up to number 13 Good Hill. And then there's all the particulars with the agreement and with the policy. It's something we'll need to basically, square away with him when we might as well be, have an understanding of what we're looking for, as we get there. So if there's any questions on that, I'll entertain them. Otherwise, there'll be more to come, I think, in the next meeting or so.
Rich has a question.
I have a comment. He's aware that he has to pay for the whole thing? Yeah. In the last project he did, we helped him out on it. But with this new water main extension, I believe it's all on the developer to pay for. Is that correct?
That is correct. I highlighted just a couple of items. If you give me another minute, basically,
Okay.
if you do one of these extensions, we are going to have a legal agreement between the developer and the town or the utility commission. I mentioned the main has to be extended across the full frontage. That's basically so that you don't just bring a main up to the beginning of someone's lot, and then if someone else wants water beyond him, that they're now not extending it across someone else's property. So basically, you get the developer to bring it in across to the end of their frontage, so that the next guy down the line is not extending it past his property. The developer does need to pay for the main extension. The way we have it worded is upfront. We collect that money from the developer. We would then make the payments to the contractor. If in fact, we run out of money or what we collected, let's say the contractor or the contractor ends up hitting more rock than anticipated or some other particular cause why the cost is more, we would at that point invoice the developer to get us the additional monies. Or if at the end of the project, we collected more than it actually cost, we would refund the developer at that point in time. The other proviso here is any property, say the properties that are across the street that now would get the benefit of having a water main extended by the developer. Most of the other utilities do it this way. There's like a 10-year window where we would charge them a frontage fee based on the actual cost. We would collect that, and then we would refund the developer that amount. So those are kind of the particulars on one of these agreements that we approved about a year ago.
Remind me of something. In that policy, did we put a provision in there that the developer has to post a bond? Do you remember if we did that or not?
I don't recall. I just read it again. I don't see any additional bond required,
Yeah.
but obviously we're collecting the full amount of the project.
Right. Yeah.
Why would you need a bond when you're collecting the full amount?
That's it was just a question because I didn't remember. Rich?
Yeah, I have a question, another question, Tom. Is it up to the town to install the water main, or can the developer install the water main?
I think it's the town.
I think the way we wrote it was that we would collect that estimate, and if we chose to, we could go about getting it installed. I think you'd have the option if the developer came in with a particular contractor that, we were happy with or has done work for us. I think we'd be probably okay to let that contractor do the work.
It's up to us to decide who the contractor's gonna be. Us being
Correct.
All
UC.
right. All right.
Yeah.
Because I could see him coming in and him saying that his contractor could do it cheaper, or something like that. So,
It's too bad. That doesn't matter.
okay, as long as we're in charge. Okay, I agree.
And Rich,
First paragraph at the end, it says, water main extensions will be owned by the town of Bethel under the authority of and maintained by the PUC and shall be installed by an approved contractor hired by the PUC.
Okay,
Take his person.
it's right there in black and white then. Thank you.
And we did have this developer in about a year ago or so, and we kind of just touched base on these issues. So he's aware, not that we're not going to have more discussion on them, but basically I think the policy speaks for itself.
Okay. I'm good.
All right, any other questions on that?
Yeah, let me just ask this. You know, this whole development seems to be very controversial with the people in the area. What P&Z, they haven't approved anything yet, have they?
Not yet.
No, not yet. He's on the agenda. I think their meeting is June 25th or 6th or whatever that P&Z meeting is, maybe that Tuesday of that week. That'll be his initial meeting with them. I assume that will extend at least a couple of meetings.
Do we need to approve anything today yet?
No.
No.
I'd like to table everything until P&Z finishes it.
All right, Pete, did you have a question?
Pete's got to be, you're muted, Pete.
He's got to unmute.
No, I don't think he.
It says ask to unmute.
Bottom left-hand corner. There it is. There you go. Well, you just put it back.
Oh,
There it is. All
Okay.
right.
There you go.
Yeah, I tabled it until it's what, make up P&Z's mind what they're gonna do with this thing.
yeah, correct. I don't think any decision needs to be made. I think he asked to come before us to explain his project and obviously get into a little bit of the details. And I told him that there'd be no decision made. It'll wind its way through and he'll be back before us again at some point.
So, yeah, this was just informational tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? And hearing none, we'll move on. Director's report. Tom, you're up again.
All right, our, I guess famous, now becoming infamous, Greenwood Avenue water main repairs. We made an attempt last week to get the proper liner installed. We got started, everything looked good. As it turned out, they had the wrong size liner. So the contractor now has received the correct size liner, and now we're just trying to work out the timing of the installation. We were gonna go with Wednesday, and I notified the railroad, and they're doing some maintenance work on the tracks, and they think they're gonna be in conflict with us at Greenwood Avenue this week. So they asked me to postpone it until next week. So it looks like at this point, depending on our excavation contractor, it should be next Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
Last week, or yeah, I guess it was last week, I did get an update from the utilities director for Danbury. I had requested an update on their sewer project. So at this point, I can fill us in to some extent. If you recall, they had a bid opening. It was last May.
This is on the water treatment plant, right?
Yeah, this is the wastewater treatment plant for Danbury, that we are obviously one of the neighboring towns that contributes flow. Their bids came back, far exceeded what they had in the budget. And so they were going back to the drawing board. That was the last we heard from them last May. What they've come up with is what's called a design build approach, where they've kind of pre-selected their construction manager, who's going to be Veolia, their design engineer, who's actually going to be Wright Pierce, and their contractor, who's going to be C.H. Nickerson. So in lieu of a traditional, have an engineer design and put out the plans and have a bid opening, they kind of are working with the contractor, engineer, and construction manager all at the same time and trying to value cost the project. So what they've come up with is a much less expensive project compared to where they were when they were bidding it, which is a good thing for us. Nothing official yet, but it looks like their all-in estimate with design and construction is like in the mid 80s, about 84.5 million. with the bidding process they were going through, with those bids, with the construction manager and with the design engineer, they were looking at over 140 million.
Wow.
Now, the good is that their estimates are coming in much less. However, the state does not recognize the design build approach because they need to have it all, 3 bids, minimum of 3 bids, and it's got to be done that way. So the negative is there's no grant money going to be associated, but it looks like the price tag that they've come up with on the design build is going to be less than the project, even counting any grants that they would have gotten. So that's where they're at the moment. They've went ahead and they've let the phase 1 portion of the project out as of this past April. That's for the state mandated phosphorus removal. That's the only real deadline we have. So the piece that they're working on right now, which they started in April, needs to be online by April of 2022. And they appear to be on track with that. The entire project, they're looking at about a 3.5-year process. What we thought they were going to do had they followed the traditional method, where we wanted Danbury as the host town to kind of cover the initial costs, get the funding, get the financing, and then build the towns. Originally, if you recall, they were going to try to bill each of the towns or make us go out and get our own financing each year along the way, which we objected to. The way they're doing it now with the design build is back the way it really should be. Danbury's going to finance it. At the end of the 3.5 years, then they'll start basically invoicing the towns for their share. Now, we don't know what the final financing will be because that's still, I don't think they're locking that in just yet. Not that we can't go out and get our own financing at that time. But basically, that's the update I've gotten. The last thing is, David Day realizes he owes us all, us, Bethel, and the neighboring towns, more of an official update. So like they did last year, when they're ready to and have a PowerPoint presentation, they'll have us back in to kind of go over the details. But that's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay. Great. Any questions?
Yeah.
Any other questions for Tom? Yeah, go ahead.
My question goes back again to the same question I've asked previously. Brewster, Southeast, their contribution to this project, are they still in the game or not?
I asked David that question. He said Brewster and New York was kind of conceptual at that time. Nothing's been finalized. I think they're still in that same position. The way David described it to me is there's a design flow, and that design flow for this plant is 12 million gallons a day. Each of the towns took their allocation that they wanted. So Bethel's allocation was 2 million gallons per day. So our percentage is going to be 2 out of 12, which is basically just under 17%. If they do proceed with anything with Brewster, what Dave is saying, it'll be Danbury who's going to basically give up some of their allocation so that our allocation will still be 2 million out of the design flow of 12 million. So even if Brewster comes on board, Danbury's going to give up some of their flow to Brewster. And that's at this point conceptually how they're looking at it. So it's all based on your ratio of the design flow, since the total cost is based on the 12 million gallons that the plant's being designed and constructed for.
I don't know if that's fair, is it? What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, it seems fair. I mean, they're not gonna, personally, I think the whole idea that Danbury's gonna let any New York communities into this thing is kind of a pie in the sky thing. But if they do, they better not take it out of our allocation. But there has to be a cost share in there too.
Exactly. That's the bottom line here.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it sounds, if we're contributing, you know, like 17%, and I don't hear of anything that their contribution towards this construction.
Right.
I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but it's just a comment of my own.
I think we have to look at that. I think we have to have some further discussions because it sounds to me like what Danbury wants to do is, you know, lock in everybody's allocation and then sell some of theirs separately, you know,
Right.
and I'm not sure that that works.
No, I don't either,
We'll
right.
We'll talk about that.
It's not equitable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll talk about it. It's always something. All right. Any other questions for Tom on that? Okay.
And my last item for director's report is budgets for sewer and water. Bob and I should be able to get things finalized, and I'm hoping to have those ready for the commission here at an upcoming meeting.
Okay.
Can you go back for a second, back to Danbury?
Yeah.
What agreement, have we signed an agreement
No.
regarding the new plant?
No, the only thing we signed was, gosh, I think, 3 years ago, we signed a form, it wasn't even a form, we sent them a letter locking in our minimum gallon allocation of 2 million. They wanted to cut us back to 1.5 or 1.8, something
I
like
remember
that.
that.
But seeing as how we only have 40% of all the potential Stony Hill homes hooked in, you know, a lot of people haven't connected yet. We wanted,
Right.
and plus there's still some development going on in the downtown area. We wanted to make sure we had enough allocation capacity for that. But aside from that, no, there hasn't been anything to sign.
There will be some revised interlocal municipal agreements that are going to come out of this project. They're going to have to update the interlocals with all the towns, whether that's going to be separate interlocals, which is, it's probably the way it is now, and Marty, you may know better than me, or they're going to be kind of like a common interlocal agreement where everyone's subject to the same kind of conditions.
We should just do a complete new agreement. Because the way it is now, it's separated between Stony Hill and downtown, which is stupid, you know, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You know, what do they care where it comes from? You know, I used to think that maybe it was the distribution system that they couldn't pump everything downtown, or they couldn't pump it, all of it in Stony Hill, but I don't think that's the case at all. I just think that's the way they set it up.
That's correct.
Well, there may be one item there, Marty, in that I think part of our flow goes through a certain pump station of Danbury's. And not all of our flow goes through that station. They have a Beaver Brook pump station that I think takes on Payne, I believe, in Berkshire. So our bill, part of our bill is some of the costs related to that pumping station also.
Well, you know, one of the questions, this is an opportunity to Marty's point. This is an opportunity to answer that question that I've never been able to get an answer from before you were here, which is, are we constrained physically between, you know, Stony Hill and downtown, or is it just a number that was allocated arbitrarily at some point in the past? Because there are times when we may want to swap capacity within that 2 million from this place to that place. And, you know, is it a matter of that's just an arbitrary number, or do the pipes and physical infrastructure limit what can go through a certain area? And David has never been able to answer that.
Okay, and when those agreements were done years ago, you know, their capacity at that Beaver Brook pump station may have been somewhat less than what it is now.
Yeah.
So it might have been constrained at the time of the agreement. I don't know, but that's a possibility.
Yeah.
But I think when we get to this point here in the coming months, you know, year, new interlocal agreements are going to have to be done, and that's going to have to get looked at pretty closely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. Good point. Okay. Any other questions on that?
No, let's go on to, while we got them here, what about the generators for Eureka and the other generator that we've been holding off on?
Yep, that's in my my PUC capital project status, so I could jump right in there.
Yep, you're up again.
Generator projects, I've gotten my request to the state And I'm waiting back to get their okay on basically, I need a written authorization from them to get it in the works. So that's where I'm at with that at this point. The other projects, Chestnut Tank, DN Tanks has just recently poured the concrete floor and footings. And they're continuing to pour the wall and the roof sections. The Bergstrom Well, the pilot company Blue Leaf, they completed their pilot study. In fact, the well pump was pulled today. And I think they're going to be back to pick their trailer up for the pilot plant today. Next steps are for them to get all the data, get it analyzed, and get that to Wright Pierce. And then that's the next big step Wright Pierce will have is once they have all this data, they'll be able to proceed with the preliminary engineering report. And then once that's accepted by the State Health Department, we'll be able to move into final design. And the last project is the 2019 water mains. And the water mains have been installed on Grassy Plain Terrace and Highview Terrace. They've been pressure tested and disinfected. And they've started work on Mansfield Street. And that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions on the capital report? And hearing none, we'll move along. Kelly, you're up. Anything leaking?
I've got a couple things. At the last meeting, I had said that it was scheduled to have the hydrant done on Taylor Avenue. It was done the following day, so that hydrant across from Vanderbilt is back in service. Presently, I've got 2 service leaks out there. I have one on Topstone, which I'm pretty sure is just a service. I don't think it's with the main. They may possibly be out there Wednesday. The contractor that I had to dig up the railroad crossing was scheduled to come Wednesday, so I'm going to put him on that. And that phantom service at 60 Hoyts Hill is leaking again, so we're going to bite the bullet. We're going to renew that, main to curb. Right now, Mansfield is, the water is off at Mansfield and Fleetwood. When they're doing the water main today, we scheduled to have an old T cut out and a couple valves added instead of doing a wet valve and then crossing under the 4-inch line right at the intersection there where the little island is. We had to go back a little further because the old 12-inch butterfly did not hold. So when we get done here, I'm going back out there to see how they're making out, but they should be turning the water back on as we speak, I hope. But other than that, sewer side is status quo, no issues. As for the COVID, everybody's doing what they're supposed to. They're keeping their distance. They're staying in separate trucks. And everybody seems to be healthy. So we're in pretty good shape. And that's all I have.
All right, great, thank you. Any questions for Kelly?
Nope.
All right, well, thank you very much. Gentlemen?
I have one question, and I apologize because I was late getting to the meeting. And I don't know if it was discussed, but I was looking at the invoices, and the invoice for, or I should say the application and certification for payment for, what's the name of the outfit? I forgot their name here. National Water Main Closing Company. I don't know if anybody noticed, but it seems like they're getting paid more than what the original contract sum was. I'm looking at it and it says the original contract sum was $249,836. I can't read it, so small, 30. And it says there was no change orders. They were already paid $249,836.30. And the total completed to date, $276,790. You know, they're looking for, I guess you made a payment to them today. Because the total amount ends up being $746,796.61. But I don't see anything about a change order or anything.
My apologies, Marty. There was one change order. It was a balancing change order because they were under on a couple of items and they like rock, and they were over on, the main item was there was an extra length of the repair they did, I believe it was, on plum trees that they lined. So there was a little bit of an extra because there was more length. Everything got paid at the unit prices, but the quantity came out a little bit less, a little bit more than what was on the original bids. And I apologize, I did not bring that balancing change order with me to.
So it was about almost $26,000 more.
The other big item, and really now that I'm thinking about it, the biggest item was the traffic control. Bethel PD, I think we put in like a placeholder for traffic, and I think it was, I think it was $20,000, and they went well over the amount of traffic control that was used. Basically, because they had two pretty large trucks. Each time they were working, set up over 2 manholes. So we had at least a pair of Bethel PD at each location. Worcester Street had that curve in it. So we definitely went over on the traffic control.
I don't have the contract in front of me, but does this fall within a contingency of it? Because I want to know who had the authority to give them to spend over the amount then. If it's outside the contingency, it shouldn't have been spent, what I'm getting at. They should have come back in front of the board.
We'll look, we'll check.
I'll have to check, Marty. I don't know what the contingency amount, I don't know that we approved a contingency amount. Maybe we did.
I thought we did, but we'll check.
Okay. All right. Again, I'm sorry I was late.
No problem, Marty. And again, that might have been for me to bring before the board here before I approved it, but I was aware of basically the work they were doing as they were doing it. And on a lot of these, you put units in there, like I said, for rock or extra excavation. And, you put in a guesstimate or, the engineer's best guess at what those quantities were going to be. For traffic, I know we put in a placeholder, and I think we put in 20,000. And the amount, and we used all Bethel PD on the job, but the amount exceeded what we had in there as our units.
Yeah, I could have sworn we talked about that, but we'll check into it, Marty. We'll put it on the next agenda.
Yeah, just check it out before you issue the check.
Yeah, we'll do.
Okay.
10-4.
Should we hold off on that check
Please
then?
do.
I'll
What's that,
talk
Bob?
to Tom tomorrow. Let's go, Tom, we'll go over
Yep.
it tomorrow.
Yeah, no problem. I probably have the change order, in my office, so. But I know certain items were under and there was a couple of items over. I think there was a little bit of extra lining because there was additional length, and it was the cops. And I think the Bethel PD traffic control was the main item.
On that particular project, I don't remember if we had any contingency on that. And that's something we have to look on at for future purposes, having some contingency if they run into something.
Yeah, Rich, on our water loan projects, the loan and grant projects, that we crank in a dollar amount. We do crank in a contingency on that because the state's going to lend us the money. On this particular project, there was no grant or loan money.
Yeah, well, but we should have it in there anyway. And
Right.
just as Marty pointed out, so you had some money to use if it ran over. If you don't use it, you don't use it. But on all the projects, we should be looking at that.
Got it.
Yep.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Since they fixed the water main, not the water main, the sewer main down on Maple Avenue, have we noticed a reduction in the amount of flow that we're pumping to Danbury or out of that pumping station?
Well, two things. When I initially looked at it, the flows didn't seem like they changed a whole lot. But as Kelly and I talked about it a little bit, with the COVID going on and everyone staying at home and the schools being closed, it kind of wasn't, it wasn't apples to apples. Our situation is not as it always was. And then the second thing that I think might have an impact was we just repaired a service leak right at that section. It was turned out to be the service to the Park and Rec building over there, their maintenance garage. And some of that leakage was probably getting into the sewer line. So Kelly, I think we just fixed that last week, was it?
2 weeks ago, Tom, yes.
Okay, so we haven't really jumped back in to analyze the numbers. But again, until we really get back to normal where people are not at home and they're out at work and school's back in session, I think that's going to give us a better picture.
All right. All right, another question. How have we received the video since they did the repair?
No, that's still with Weston and Sampson. I haven't gotten that from them yet.
All right. Okay. Just curious to see how, it's looking after the repair.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? And hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
All right, by Rich, second by Paul. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Mark,